This is Dr. Kraus, and just a little video here having to do with online resources, internet resources that we have for Bible study and Bible interpretation. So just word to the wise here, what should we expect? Well, I mean, to some degree, you always get what you pay for. So if we're accessing something and there's no charge, we call those free resources. There are a lot of sites out there that will have many older resources. These have been digitized. They're in the public domain. There are no copyright issues. And even the people that did the digitizing allow these things to be used without copyright issues. So you see things like Strong's Concordance, Matthew Henry's commentary. These Strong's Concordance is well over 100 years old. Matthew Henry's commentary is like 400 years old. So these have been around for a long time, and they'll be available on a lot of different sites. Some sites will offer free resources, though, that include newer items that are still under copyright. So they've made arrangements to do that with permission, and we'll look at a couple of those when we get a little bit further. Now, there are sites that you can go to where you pay to use the resources. The Logos website is one of these where you can get a very stripped down version of it, and then they're always trying to upsell you. So you can pay a fee. I've not really done those very much because I buy the software if I want it. But most of these sites are paid by advertising banners. And that's how they make them work, so they'll have advertising and they invite you to click and they get paid by the click. So what are the advantages of online Bible resources? I think, when we began to get things digitized, this really began to take off in the 1980s and well into the 90s. You begin to get a lot of resources like this, but it allows for cut and paste copying, of a text, of a Bible text. You don't have to type it in, and it allows you to conduct searches for words that you can find because everything is digitized. So some sites have really big capability to provide information on the original text of a Bible passage, and we're going to look at that a little bit. Dictionary resources for Greek and Hebrew words. So doing word study, they can be very valuable. So I just want to look at two. I think I started out this presentation with 6, and I'm just going to look at 2. They're pretty different, but they have some overlap, but they're pretty representative too of what's out there. Probably the most popular Bible type website today is BibleGateway.com. This is managed by an organization called Biblia, and they are heavily involved in the New International Version. They are funded heavily also by the people that did the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., which I haven't gotten to see yet, but would like to. And that's the Green family that made their money in Hobby Lobby. They've been very generous with the money for these sorts of causes. So Bible Gateway does advertising, and you'll see that in what I'm going to show you. When you go to Bible Gateway, this is the splash page, and it invites you to look up a passage, and we'll give you the English version you can see there. And you can actually bring the menu down. There are over 60 English translations available, not to mention a whole bunch of Spanish translations, other language translations. The New International Project has expanded way beyond just English translations. And so it's really an amazing worldwide usage resource, BibleGateway.com. What we want to look at briefly here is over on the other menu, what's called study tools. So there's a limited set of more advanced Bible study tools than just seeing the text. And if we click on that, that menu item, study tools, it will give us two choices: scripture engagement or more resources. We want to use the more resources. So let's click on that. If we do that, we'll find a menu of various things, and I've scrolled down a little bit from the top of that page, the more resources page, to one called commentaries. So again, a couple of choices here, more information on commentaries, which is kind of their copyright information stuff, but we want to try to use them. So let's click on use commentaries. And there's not a huge bank of commentaries here. You know, it's pretty limited. But one of the ones I want to show you is called the IVP New Testament Commentary Series, IVP InterVarsity Press. And this is a really a good, solid, not too heavy duty, but a good commentary on the New Testament only. I mean, this is the kind of thing I would pay for, and the fact that they have it available here is really pretty amazing. There's some other ones here you can see up above, Matthew Henry's commentary, that again is found on a lot of these sites because it's free and still has some good things, but you know, I think you can do better than a commentary that's 400 years old. So that's the commentaries thing. Now, if we go back to the resources where the use commentaries was, if we click backwards, we scroll down a little bit more and we get a section called dictionaries/encyclopedia. And again, we want to use them. So if we click on that, use dictionaries and encyclopedias, we get this entry, and you see there's a number of these. I pulled this one up because this first one is one of these public domain ones called Hitchcock's Bible Names, and notice in the description, published in the 1800s. So, okay, Bible names don't change that much, but he's going to be dealing with the King James Version, and again, you kind of get what you pay for. If we go down to the bottom of this page, though, we get an entry called the Encyclopedia of the Bible. This is the only encyclopedia they have. Bible Encyclopedia is just going to be more extensive than a dictionary. This is a modification of what came out in the 70s and 80s called the Zondervan Pictorial Encyclopedia of the Bible. I have this on my computer and I still use it. It is a useful tool. So what I'm going to do here then is use this to look up Melchizedek, because that's kind of our focus of study. So I have to go and click on the M, and I have to scroll down on the articles until I find the one alphabetically on Melchizedek. And when I do, this is what I find. This is really good information. It's got a little bit of Hebrew and Greek there, but not too much, and gives the meaning of this name, King of Righteousness. I think that's a little wrong translation. My King. The Melchi, the I in Hebrew, is my righteous king, or my king of righteousness. But they mentioned here that Melchizedek is mentioned in Genesis 14, Psalm 110, and several places in the book of Hebrews, and then goes on to give more information. So that's the sort of thing that you can find on Bible Gateway. Very useful, and the cost is right. The second one that I want to show you is one that we looked at in class, the Blue Letter Bible, which is a little bit different. There's some advertising here you can see, but let's look for Melchizedek here. So I'm going to type in Melchizedek and hit go. This is going to be on the King James Version. And it does a word search on Melchizedek, all the occurrences of that word. It says it occurs 2 times in the King James Version. There you see them, Genesis 14 and Psalm 110. Now, I can go over to where the tab called Tools and look at the interlinear and some commentaries and stuff if I want to. I want to show you something else, though. You can play with that if you want to. But if I go back up here and click on Strong's, here's what it does. It gives me the number of the Strong's dictionary article, Hebrew 4442, having to do with that word, Melchizedek. So if I click on that, I go right to an expanded entry based on that Strong's dictionary number. And a couple of things here. You get some Hebrew, don't worry about that. It also gives you, I don't know why they do this, reference to TWOT. This is the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, which they don't have. It's not available online because it's still in copyright. I have that on Logos, but you can't get that for free. So then, some more information, outline of biblical usage. This is a resource, and they give the definition from there. King of Salem, the order of the priesthood to which Christ belongs. Then you get the actual dictionary entry from Strong, Melchizedek, from a couple of Hebrew words. You could go look those 2 words up, one for king and one for righteousness, and very brief definition. Then even more interesting is they give another Hebrew dictionary called Brown Driver Briggs, popularly known as BDB, and it also is keyed to Strong's numbers, but gives a little bit more information here, and including at the very end there, you see the Greek form of this word, Melchizedek, as it occurs in the Septuagint. We go down just a little bit further, one more, an older Hebrew dictionary called Gesenius, and again, just another dictionary, King of Righteousness, which is a better translation. But now you notice something. It has Melchizedek or Melchizedek, and it ends with the letter C. So that's Blue Letter Bible. I mean, there's a lot of resources there that you can play with, and different translations. It doesn't have nearly as many English translations as Bible Gateway. I think there's only 5 or 6 on Blue Letter Bible, but a lot of dictionary type resources. But I just want to explain then what's going on. Why on Blue Letter Bible, when we typed in Melchizedek, did those passages in Hebrews show up? And here is the answer. If we compare Psalm 110, verse 4, King James Version, which is what Strong's is keyed to, the last word is Melchizedek with a K. If we look at this in the NIV, very similar. The Lord has sworn, will not change his mind. Your priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. But now if we look at Hebrews, in the King James Version, they spell it differently. Melchizedek with a C. So if we type in that word with a K and do a search on it for the King James Version, this is not going to show up because it's spelled differently. And here's what's going on. In the King James Version, they translated the Hebrew name, the Old Testament names based on the Hebrew text. The New Testament, they translated those names based on the Greek text, and sometimes the spelling is different. So in all of the more recent translations, like NIV or ESV or any of them, they harmonize those. So they use basically the same word spelling in the New Testament for a person in the Old Testament. So they've updated this Melchizedek. If you went back to Blue Letter Bible and changed the search version to NIV and typed in Melchizedek, you would get those 2 verses from the Old Testament, Genesis and Psalms, but you'd also get all of the verses from the book of Hebrews that are in the New Testament. Okay, well, anyway, I could go on, but this is just a little taste of some of the resources available to you. and hopefully you get a chance sometime to just play around with these. There's a lot there, and the learning curve on these can be a little bit steep, but I think it can be worth it, and you can get a lot of good information. Thank you.